I know y'all are looking at this right now and saying, disclaimer, what's going on? Well, the reason why this is because this is a video that I recorded back in January, at the end of January, and I forgot for some reason it got lost in the shuffle with all the other commentaries that I was uploading. But I said I recorded it and I wanted to put it out there because it is an update video to a story that I already talked about maybe 2.5 years ago, and I really wanted to get the story out there. So here it is now, and I also have an update that's going to be at the end of the video that's more recent, that came out at the beginning of March. Also, let me give a shout out to ZZ, because if it wasn't for me watching her live and talking about this, I would have completely forgot to upload this video. I even went on my channel to make sure I didn't upload it, or if I did, and sure enough I didn't. So here's the commentary right here. While everyone was getting so excited with the pardons that Donald Trump was giving towards those involved with January 6th, you might have missed this particular pardon that he gave right here to these two cops that were involved with the death of a man by the name of Karon Hylton-Brown back in 2020. Now, in case y'all are unaware of that particular story, back in 2020, I think maybe like around October, and it happened in DC. I remember it vividly because, of course, I'm in close proximity. There was an incident where he was being chased on his moped for whatever reason. The reason that they gave was not the ones that it wasn't truthful. Long story short, these two cops basically fatally took him out, and they were charged and convicted back in, I want to say, I can't remember exactly when they were convicted, but I do know that they were sentenced back in September of 2024 to roughly around 66 months in prison, which equals out to about 5.5 to 6 years. Well, fast forward to actually not last week, but to a couple days ago, Donald Trump pardoned both of them. Because as you can see, it says Trump pardons 2 DC officers convicted in fatal chase and cover up. So that means not only did this man die on their watch, but they covered up how he died to get themselves off, and they got discovered that they were lying and they were the ones involved with his death, thus sentencing them to about 5.5 to 6 years. They only spent a couple of months in jail because they got sentenced in September. Now Trump has pardoned both of them. So they didn't even do half of a year. They did what, 4 months, maybe? Let's go ahead and get into this. President Donald Trump issued full and unconditional pardons Wednesday to 2 Washington, D.C. police officers who were convicted for their roles in a deadly chase of a young man on a moped in 2020 and subsequent cover-up, a case that led to protests in the nation's capital. Trump granted clemency to Metropolitan Police Officer Terrence Sutton, who was sentenced in September to more than 5 years in prison. He faced the District of Columbia charge of second-degree murder and federal charges of conspiracy to obstruct and obstruction of justice in the October 2020 unauthorized pursuit that killed Karon Hylton-Brown, aged 20. Sutton was the first DC police officer to be convicted of murder for conduct while on duty. Now look at that. The first one. And considering corruption in the police departments in DC, that's not shocking, considering that he's the first one. The same jury that found Sutton guilty also convicted Andrew Zabowski, a lieutenant who supervised Sutton, of conspiracy to obstruct and obstruction of justice. Zabowski was sentenced to 4 years in prison. He was not accused of the more serious charge of second-degree murder. Trump granted Zabowski clemency. Both men had been free pending the outcome of their appeals. Trump had hinted of his plans to pardon them after his inauguration. They were arrested, put in jail for 5 years because they went after an illegal, Trump said Tuesday. And I guess something happened where something went wrong, and they arrested the 2 officers and put them in jail for going after a criminal. Those are his words. Hylton-Brown was an American citizen. His mother, Karon Hylton, said in an interview Thursday night, she said he was born February 29th, 2000 in Washington, D.C. Hylton says she sent a letter to the White House addressed to Trump on Tuesday asking him to not pardon Sutton and Zabavsky. She also wrote in the letter, a copy of which she shared with NBC News, that she believed racism had caused her son's death, and she asked Trump to review the case before making a judgment. A White House spokesperson did not immediately respond to a request for comment Thursday night. The D.C. Police Union praised Trump's decision, of course, saying in a statement that Sutton had been, quote, wrongly charged by corrupt prosecutors for doing his job. This action rights an incredible wrong that not only harmed Officer Sutton, but also crippled the ability for the department to function, the union said. See what they're doing? They literally put the needs and wants of their dirty, filthy cop, or should I say cops, ahead of the life of a person that they wrongly took out. And we know why. We see the optics there. The fact that this police union even made that statement should let you know how corrupt and crooked they are. The union expressed dismay a day earlier after Trump pardoned more than 1,500 people charged in connection with the January 6, 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol, including those who assaulted law enforcement officers. Now look at that. So the day before, when Trump pardoned all of those individuals involved with January 6th, they were upset about that because it directly affected them in a huge way. But a day later, because he pardoned this dude for what he did to Karon Hylton-Brown, now they're fine with it. See, I can't take none of these fools seriously. I cannot take any of them seriously. I keep telling people they are all crooked. The Metropolitan Police Department thanked Trump for, quote, supporting its officers after the Sutton-Zabavsky pardons, adding in a statement that the prosecutions were literally unprecedented. Never before in any other jurisdiction in the country has a police officer been charged with second-degree murder for pursuing a suspect. On the night of October 23rd, 2020, months after the police killing of George Floyd in Minneapolis had ignited widespread protests against police brutality and racial injustice, Sutton used a police car to chase Hylton-Brown, who was riding a moped without a helmet on a sidewalk in Northwest Washington. Hylton-Brown ignored Sutton's attempt to stop him and drove off. Sutton chased Hylton-Brown for more than 10 blocks at unreasonable speeds, and at one point drove the wrong way on a runway street. Sutton followed Hylton-Brown into a narrow alley, turned off his car's emergency lights, siren, and accelerated. When Hylton-Brown exited the alley, he was struck by another vehicle. As Mr. Hylton-Brown lay unconscious in the street in a pool of his own blood, Sutton and Zabavsky agreed to cover up what Sutton had done to prevent any further investigation of the incident. The officers allowed the driver whose car struck Hylton-Brown to leave the scene within 20 minutes of the crash, then turned off their body-worn cameras, conferred privately, and left. Look at that right there. And you want me to sit up here and believe that Karon Hylton-Brown is any more criminal than the two thugs that just did what I just read for you? Sutton drove his police car directly over the crash site, audibly crushing pieces of debris from the collision as he left. Prosecutors said, and neither officer contacted the department's major crash unit or its internal affairs division to each initiate investigations. They also misled their commanding officer about the severity of the crash, denying that a police chase had even occurred and omitting any mention of Hylton-Brown's critical injuries. According to prosecutors, Zabavsky also falsely implied that Hylton-Brown had been drunk, and Sutton drafted a false police report. Hylton-Brown suffered severe head trauma and died 2 days later. The jury in this case found the defendants guilty beyond reasonable doubt for their roles in the murder of Karon Hylton-Brown and a related cover-up, affirming what had happened here was a serious crime. Then U.S. Attorney Matthew M. Graves said in September after the officers were sentenced, "Public safety requires public trust. Crimes like this erode that trust and are a disservice to the community and the thousands of officers who work incredibly hard within the bounds of the Constitution to keep us safe." The case spurred days of protests outside a police station in Washington. David Schertz, an attorney representing Hylton-Brown's estate, said Trump's decision was outrageous and misguided. "I think it's one of the worst decisions Trump has ever made," he said, "and I believe he is being ill-advised." Schertz believes the police unions influenced the decisions for the officers to receive pardons. Zabowski's attorney, Christopher Zampogna, said in a statement that his client thanks President Trump for issuing his pardon unconditionally. And that's another thing, unconditionally. That's like a full-on pardon, like there's no strings attached whatsoever. He's basically just letting the guy just walk out of prison, and it's like, oh, okay, nothing to see here. J. Michael Hannon, Sutton's attorney, did not immediately return a request for comment. This is what I was warning people about. I was warning people that it was going to be a trickle-down effect. Yes, a lot of people are very excited about him getting, with the illegals and the immigrants and all the type of stuff right now. But don't forget about the other stuff that's going to start trickling down outside of that. This is one of them. I had actually read somewhere where they said that Trump had started getting these these executive orders and stuff like that. And when it came to the pardons of the people involved with January 6th, he just signed off on them like a full blanket thing without really reading any of them, just so he doesn't have to go through every last one of them. So that's not a good thing. That's really not a good thing, because look at what just happened here. He just pardoned 2 officers who was involved with the fatal death of a man, and then they covered it up and then let the person go who hit him, even though it was really an accident on their part, on the person who hit him part, because they didn't know anyone was going to come out that alley like that. But they led into it by chasing him and then turning off the camera, turning off the siren, all of that. Like, they were determined to go after him. And then you have Trump right here that falsely claimed that Karon was an immigrant. And his mother was like, no, he was born here. He's an American citizen. Man, I tell you, this is only the beginning. This is only the beginning. I think the thing that really gets me the most when it comes to this situation right here is that this happened back in 2020. Imagine the family and the people attached to this case went through all of this for roughly around almost nearly 4 years to get them convicted for what they did to their loved one, only for it to be undone in one day. Like, that is crazy. I think that's the part that pisses me off the most about this, is that it literally got undone way faster in one fell swoop than it took for them to even get convicted. I mean, I can only imagine all the things that the family had to go through in order to get to this point and get some kind of sigh of relief, because even 6 years or 5 years is not even enough time for what they did, but still it was something, only for it to be undone with the swipe of a pen. Now you understand why they say the phrase, the pen is mightier than the sword. There you go.
But wait, there's more.
So as you can see by this title, and it's dated March 3rd, 2025, it says DC Police Department reinstates officers convicted in death in cover-up after Trump pardon. It says the Metropolitan Police Department has reinstated 2 Washington, D.C. officers weeks after President Donald Trump pardoned them for their role in the death of 20-year-old Karon Hylton-Brown in 2020, a case that drew protests on the heels of the murder of George Floyd. Both officers were reinstated by DC's police department Monday and are once again being paid. An MPD source with knowledge of the reinstatements told CNN. Officer Terrence Sutton and Lieutenant Andrew Zabowski had been suspended without pay as the legal process is played out. Officer Sutton and Lieutenant Zabowski have been reinstated. MPD does not comment on personnel matters, a spokesperson for MPD confirmed to CNN in a statement Monday night. The officers will need to go through extensive retraining, as if that'll help, before the department determines what their assignments will be, the MPD source told CNN, which of course by now they probably already went through it. It's unclear if either officer will return to work in a public-facing role. Sutton was found guilty of second-degree murder, conspiracy to obstruct, and obstruction of justice, and sentenced to 66 months in prison. The same jury found Zabowski guilty of conspiracy to obstruct and obstruction of justice, and he faced 48 months behind bars. Zabowski and Sutton received a full and unconditional pardon just days after Trump was inaugurated. Sutton, along with his attorney, declined to comment. When reached by CNN Monday, CNN has reached out to Zabofsky and his attorney for comment. And it pretty much goes on and on, but it pretty much rehashes the case. So that's pretty much what came of it. So as you can see, never fired, just transferred. And they, like I said, this was Operation Protect the White Boy written all over this from the time they got sentenced to the time they got pardoned, and now they've been reinstated. So there you go. But like I said, shout out to ZZ again. If I hadn't seen her live, I would not have thought to look back and see about this particular case, because I could have just threw this in there as an update and realized I didn't even upload the entire video. So it kind of works in my favor as far as this goes. And I'm glad that even though I had to reach back a couple months just to put this video up here, some of y'all may not have even known that this happened. Some of y'all may not even remember the story as a whole, because a lot of stuff happened in 2020, and there's been a lot of stuff that's been going on in the first quarter of 2025. So y'all let me know what y'all think about this down in the comments, and I will talk to you in the next one.